Alright, so I just wanted to show you the difference between some of these small ones and some of these big ones. These little ones like this I'm going to leave whole. And there are some big ones in here that I'd like to create a little bit more of the beets. So I'm just going to chop this up. Chop all the big ones. And a few of the small ones. And I'm going to leave a lot of the little teeny tiny ones whole because they're small enough that you don't need to cut it. And I think I am done. So, here are them whole. And now, they are now cut in half. And look, it made more. So that looks really good. Alright, so let me go ahead and show you how the meat looks now. Now the reason why I've cooked the meat in with some of the liquid, sorry for the quick rush over, but I want to show you guys. Whiplash. Let's see if I can get rid of some of that steam. So there's a little bit of water in here that I had poured earlier from my tea kettle, and it's just enough in here to actually tenderize this. You don't want to overdo it with water in the beginning because you can end up making it dry, and you want this to cook in its own oils that the beef has, plus a little bit of the vegetable oil you put in so it doesn't burn. And by doing the slow cook on here, it's actually on medium, doing the slow cook this way, you want to do it for probably about 25 minutes, a half hour if you want. And what that does, it tenderizes the meat so that way you can finally add your vegetables. I wouldn't recommend putting in your potatoes in now. Do it at the very last minute and put it on a very slow cook so that way the potatoes will stay whole. Now I'm going to chop up some carrots because we want to add some carrots to this, and that way we can see how it looks once we put it in there. That'll be the next thing to put in here because carrots do take longer to cook. And with our beets, we're not going to need to cook those. They're already perfectly tender. Oh, look how pretty that is. We're just going to... Oh, look at this one. I didn't notice that. It's cool. These are delicious just by themselves anyways. By the way, I should say. A little salt and pepper. Yum. These guys won't need to go in until the very end. And the next thing to add will be my tomato. So I'm going to go ahead and add the tomato in now. Let me walk you guys over. You know what? I need to turn on the other light that I have above me. I forgot. I'm having my kitchen remodeled, you guys, and I totally forgot. Let me turn it on. Oh, look at that. I'm not used to having an overlight kitchen. Over the head, I should say. See my new floors? I'm still having a lot of stuff done. And there's my chopping board. Yay. And this is the tomatoes with the chili. It's been about a half hour. I forgot to mention that this meat's been cooking, so that's why I'm adding the tomatoes now. Now by doing this with the tomatoes, you're going to be able to taste, once it starts to cook down, it'll bring out the sweetness of the meat and the sweetness of the tomatoes. Cook it down so it'll thicken up, and we can alter it if it's a little bit, if it needs something like vinegar. I like to add vinegar because vinegar actually tenderizes your meat, especially raw meats. You can actually do that if you decide to do this with the beef. Marinate your meat overnight or up to 8 hours and put some vinegar in there, and that way it'll tenderize it. Alright, so let me cut the carrots up, add a little vinegar to this, and then later on towards the end we'll add the potatoes. It looks so good. It looks like a chili, doesn't it? But it's actually a chunky, hearty beef soup. And we'll add those ingredients and we'll see that next. Alright, so carrots. I've already rinsed the carrots, but as you can see, they're still a little dirty there. So I like to just take a potato peeler like this one, and this is actually one that does not swivel. This is flexible here, a good size handle. And I just like to clean it up quickly like this. That just gets rid of any type of dirt on the outside layer of your carrots. I love the way this works. And look how pretty that comes out. And then I just have to chop off this end and this end. So let me do that to all of the carrots. Oh, and another thing I forgot to mention, I have celery. I totally forgot about the celery. Now, a good tip about celery, if you guys are looking for some greenery towards the end, chop off all of this celery on top and save it and chop it up. It's going to be kind of like your cilantro or parsley that you would add. This is really good to add towards the end. Same thing here. You can add it in the beginning, but I like to add it towards the end. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up. Look at this big carrot. I'm going to go ahead and clean these things up. And remember, if you have a worm compost bin or just a regular compost, maybe they're sitting next to you on the sink like I do, or if you have worms, add your shavings to the bins, or if you have birds like I do, give it to the birds. You can chop this up, or you can put it in a food processor, and you can stick it in a cookie sheet and put it in the oven at 200 degrees for about 20 minutes, and then check it. If it looks dehydrated enough, that'll be perfect. If not, put it in a food dehydrator, and because they're small, it's going to take about 8 hours, and depending on the food dehydrator you have, could be a little bit sooner. Then you can put that into your mixes. You guys have seen probably some of my videos where I make some natural bird supplement or bird food. I like to add carrots, dried carrots. But if you take your carrots and you do the same process, you chop them up, you dehydrate them, or even if you leave them in long strands like this, you can do that too. Dehydrate them, and then keep them in a Ziploc bag separate from anything else to keep them, pure, and then rehydrate them and give them to your birds. And now they have fresh carrots. So that's another good way to do it. But if you can afford to give them a little bit now, that's even better, because remember, live food is much more healthier than frozen, which is good too, canned, or dehydrated, because you want to get all the benefits that it has when it's fresh like this. But sometimes you need to do those things, dehydrate them or freeze them, because that's the only alternative you might have, or because of the cost sometimes. Alright, I got one more carrot to do after this, and then I need to chop up all of my vegetables. And I think what I'll do is I'll come right back and we'll see all the vegetables chopped up. Alright, my camera keeps on going out when I'm not using it for a while. Alright, so I'm cutting off the tops here, and I'm going to save these for my birds because they do love that. And I've already cleaned them up, and I peeled them and I cut off the ends. And I'm just going to cut them sideways here. I'm just going to do like a side cut. And they don't need to be perfect, but see, they look kind of nice. They're long. You guys seen that before in restaurants or at home. And gotta be careful. Make sure you guys always use a really sharp knife, because you'll have a better chance of cutting up your vegetables quickly and nicely and not cutting yourself. But if you use a dull knife, I guarantee you're going to cut yourself. Alright, so here are the celery stalks. Now I'm going to cut off the ends, save that for my birds. And remember what I said about this fuzzy part? I'm going to save those, because I want to use that at the very end, because I don't have any parsley and I didn't buy any cilantro, which I kind of regret because I love cilantro. If you guys aren't sure what cilantro is, it's really good. You should Google it. It gives it a very exotic taste to everything. Alright. Oops. So these are just going to be cut up into small bite size. Be careful towards the end here. And I'm adding this to my potato and carrots. I have a bowl of potatoes and carrots in water right now. I'm going to go ahead and take the water out. Ugh. Kind of don't need to see that, a little close, but kind of don't need this to be rinsed. It's already been washed, and I don't want to get rid of that much flavor. Now the celery, I'm just gonna add it all with the carrots. I don't mind that cooking down very quickly because I don't need the freshness of that, because I'm going to use the celery tops here. But I'm going to be using a lot of this celery, probably the entire amount, because it depends. I'll change my mind in a few, probably. Cut that off for the birds. It's too small. Cut that off. Alright. again, not to cut yourself. The only thing when I go to put the carrots and the celery in the pot is I'm going to save the potatoes, because remember, I don't want all those potatoes in there. Alright, you know, I think I might have enough celery. This is what was left. I'm going to cut the tops of these off. I have 3 of these left. I'm going to chop that off and give it to the birds. I'll put this in. I'll show you in a minute why I decided to stop, because I think I have enough celery. And the funny thing is, I don't even like celery. It's my one thing I don't really care for, but I love it in soup. It tastes really good. Alright, let me go ahead and chop this up for you guys. Treat this kind of like you would cilantro and just bunch it up. And see, when you got a good enough, you can cut. I do this for support too, because you don't want this flying around the tip and then cutting yourself. Alright, that looks good. So that's what we're going to save as the garnish towards the very end of the soup. I'm going to throw this in because I want that greenery to pop out. Alright. I wonder... Let's see. Let me go ahead and show you guys how this turned out with all the chopping up of the potatoes. Alright, so there we go. I got my carrots, and underneath the entire bowl there's all this potatoes. And let's see how much celery I got, so that's the reason why I didn't want to chop anymore. I think I'm going to chop these two, make them a little bit smaller. The last part of the garnish here, and I'm also going to be chopping up some fresh onion along with that. And I'm going to probably throw in 5 fresh garlic cloves at the end as well and chop that up, so that way I can have a fresh taste. So I think that's it for now. What I'm going to do is cook it. I'll show you one more step, and then after that I'll show you the final soup, what it looks like towards the end. I just took out a little bit of meat and tried it. Oh, look at this. It's so... It's good. Put that back in. Alright. Let me chew this. Hold on. Okay. Very tender too. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and start adding my celery. It's going to release all the flavor. I'm going to be doing this with one hand, so bear with me. I'm going to try not to add any of the potato. And you know, if any of this is left behind, the celery and with the potato that I didn't catch, it's okay. It'll be fresh. Remember how I said you don't really have to do the fresh celery towards the end. You just want to put the fresh tops for the garnish part. It smells so good in my kitchen. It's December 31st, which tonight will be New Year's Eve. I mean New Year's night, whatever, New Year's Eve, yeah. And this will be yummy for tonight. And by the time this is finished, it'll probably be, no, I think it's about 9 o'clock. Alright, so now I'm going to add the carrots. Now, I'm going to try to get all the carrots because I don't want any left behind. I want these to be in there for sure, cooking up. Because I don't want any hard carrots while I'm trying to bite down on a nice hearty stew, chunky stew, or soup, not stew. It's looking like a stew in the beginning. That's the reason why I probably mentioned it. But it's definitely a soup. We're going to be adding lots of water and covering this up. And I think I'm going to cook it for about another 40 minutes, I think. Man, this is a lot of work when you have to do one hand. Alright. Almost done. And then don't forget, I also have some beets to add to this. Alright, I think I got as much as I could. There's a little bit in here, but I'm not going to bother with that. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and raise the temperature up. And I'm going to try to cover this up with water. And the meat was slightly spicy because of the hot powdered spice that meat I forgot what it's pronounced. M-I-T-M-I-T-A. Mita. I don't know. I think that might be good enough. Now this pot might not be able to hold those potatoes later, but that's why it's important to cook these down a little. Once those are cooked down a little, I may have to transfer this into a bigger pot. I'm not sure. Or do 2 pots. Because I still got to add all this potatoes in there. So let's hope that this cooks down just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and stir this up because I want all of the... See, now this is the reason why I kept this ladle, because it's easy to move it around. Look at those chunks of tomatoes. Now, it's not spicy because of those chilies that were in the tomatoes. It's because of the spices I added. See, it looks pretty right now. Can you imagine all this greenery towards the end when I put in the tops? That'll be really good. Now, the meat's already tender. And as you can see by cutting up all that meat, there's a lot of chunks in there. See how chunky and hearty this soup is? So I gotta add the potatoes in, which I won't record. You guys know how to add potatoes to soup. I will put the beets in at the very end. And I will put in the fresh garlic, fresh red onion, and fresh celery tops, and the beets at the very end. And then I'll be able to serve this up in a bowl and show you guys. And then that should be it. Alright, so I've added the potatoes and I've added the beets, and it's now cooked and finished. And I added at the very end the fresh red onions, the tops of the celery, which you can see right there, and the garlic, the fresh garlic. So all of this came out really good, very hearty, very chunky. So let me show you what it looks like when it's plated up. And there you go. Doesn't that look really good? Got chunks of beef, the carrots, the celery, potatoes, tomatoes, the onions. Looks really good, and the beets. So I'm really happy about this. And it smells really good. And the broth is very lean and yummy. So if you guys want to see more videos of me doing some other stuff, or cooking or baking or anything, I do have one more coming up, dessert that I made tonight. I'll probably put it up another time, but if you guys want to see some more upcoming videos, don't forget to subscribe, rate the video, and comment if you want, and I'll see you guys in the next video.